Well, I got involved in this project when I got an idea for a character. Just nuts, absolutely crazy, and I wasn't sure where to go with it, you know. Should I write about it? Should I, maybe just, keep it on the back burner for some project I might think of? So I told my friend Lee.
I really wanted to start making a serious film and try to kickstart my career as a filmmaker, and I thought that I could use this concept as a flagship. It was an October night. It was about 11 o'clock, and Jake called me. He said he had this really cool idea for a character. It involved a lot of schizophrenia, that sort of thing. Like you take... He had some Samuel Jackson character and mixing it with Leonardo DiCaprio's Shutter Island, mixed with Guy Pearce in Memento. And what it seems to be what we're good at doing is making a character. And then the next step after that, of course, is to devise a plan on how to use that character in an interesting way.
It only took a couple days of brainstorming, and we realized where we wanted to go, and that was a short film. So, after a couple more weeks of brainstorming, I'd say it was about 2 or 3, we had the information we wanted. We had his background, we had his mentality, we had his illnesses, who this guy really was, and it kind of went from there.
And so we started having regular meetings, like once a week, from October for about a month, because I finished the first draft of the script on November 21st, which was the day before my son was born, because my wife was in labor and there was a lot of downtime in the hospital, so I finished it up in the hospital or next to her. The first draft was, I believe, 20 pages, and it basically didn't really change a lot from there. We basically just modified a lot of dialogue. Basically what it came down to is, what can we shoot with as little money as possible and still make it look interesting? And I think that's what really drives the writing of the plot. Like Jake, he would come up with some pretty whacked out ideas, and he'd be up here, and then I'd say, okay, Jake, let's bring it down here because this is what we can afford. Terry Cross's costume was an amalgamation of a St. Vinny's trip and some shoes and pants that he already had.
Well, we were looking something with a bit of a noir, I'd say almost 50s feel. Very private detective, old school, The 2 twin holsters under the trench coat with the hat and the glasses, and we wandered into Vinny's with about 20 bucks, walked out 20 minutes later with $16 worth of the Terry Cross costume. So, the most expensive part of that whole costume was the $70 shoes that I think you see in one shot, maybe.
He already had that hat, and those were my prescription sunglasses in the photos you see, and on screen. Also, that tie, we St. Vinny's, they had this big tie rack, and we looked for the tackiest looking tie we could find, and it was 35 cents, and it ended up looking really good on the character, so that's what we went with. And then we did this photo shoot with my Pentax camera behind the military surplus store in Baraboo. They got this great big brick wall that just looks fantastic, and it fit the feel of what I wanted the film to look like, and we shot that before we did a lot of shooting, which began in the spring of 2012. And some of the first things that we shot were of him preparing and shaving and getting dressed and stuff. We wanted to do as much as we could with just me and him. And that took a lot of coordination because we both have full-time jobs and there's no money behind this project, so basically we just had to wait for the timing to be right, which ate up a lot of time. That's why it took 18-20 months from start to finish, even though it's a 30-minute film. It's just scheduling differences. What I'm really proud of with the film is the amount of locations that we use. A couple days we spent looking at abandoned houses in the area. There was one that was just way too busted.
Now this place is fucking run.
Damn, how old is this place?
No idea. This roof has fallen recently. It wasn't like that before.
Dude, this would be perfect right here. Put a tarp up. Put a tarp up. Single chair, bunch of debris, broken out glass. This totally looks like the fucking habitat of a lunatic maniac killer.
You got these outlets, bro.
Dude, I can see it now, right? There's tarps, and then there's two single pieces of furniture, and they're both like almost brand new. Chair right in the center of the room, and a table right here with a bunch of like torture-looking instruments on it. So it would literally be like the door, right? The camera would like come up to the door, like track up to it. Bam! Door just flies open without anybody, and then.
And then Jake was telling me about this other house out towards LaRue, and we drove out there, and the house wasn't there anymore. But the neighbors told us that they knew some people that had an abandoned house on their land, and so we went out there to the Klingenmeyer farm, which is just past the train tracks.
Hello. I have no idea what that is.
It's a salt lick.
Demonstrate for me. We could use this space.
Well, yeah, I mean, we could.
Because this space is big enough to get a floodlight in here. You know, have me sit there or something.
And you know what? I've got those painter tarps. We could always just like put up two painter's tarps so it would look like he's in like an impromptu, I'm ready to kill people, I got my plastic up kind of. Maybe I watched too much Dexter scenario. Hey, they're making shows about everything else. Maybe they'll give me a show called The Cow Whisperer.
Yeah.
They've already got The Cat Whisperer. Meow.
We looked around the house, and the floor, you could stand on the foundation and the house would move. You know, that's just how unstable it was, but it looked great. So shooting on a budget. There were a lot of scenes where Jake and I would be shooting with no cameraman. And so what we would, especially at Pierce's, what we would do is we would shoot, I would be holding the camera and I would shoot his stuff, and so when he's walking after, he's, you know, stalking me, I'm actually in front of him walking backwards. And we do that, and then I direct him, okay, I'm turning around. You know, I would say it aloud, and then he would stop and look at the cheese or whatever was there. It happened to be cheese, and then he'd go around and then he walked down the aisle, and then I told him, go look at some soup. So he kind of nonchalantly takes my direction, looks at some soup, and then I told him to look over. He looks over. You know, he's just doing everything perfectly to my direction, and then we'd cut, and then he'd walk behind me. Then he'd be walking behind me, and then I'd be doing my stuff, and then I'd turn around suddenly, like, oh, tomato soup. So that's what I was actually looking for, tomatoes, and because Kayla told me to buy some while I was at Pierce's, and so those people that I was talking to, the people that work at Pierce's, I was actually asking them where the tomato soup was, and then we would just cut that together. And I think what was most challenging for Jake as an actor is that when we were shooting the abandoned house scene, we did one wide take. We'd shoot the scene. We'd both be acting, and then what we'd do is that I would have a super close up of him, and then he'd be talking to nobody while he was walking around. And I knew that my camera wasn't going to perform well from the get-go, which is why it is in black and white. I made that decision very early on because I knew that I didn't want to have blue and red speckles all over my movie. And the only way to fix that is to turn it monochromatic, and then those blue and red specks just become grain. So that was the decision I made very early on, and I think it serves the movie well. And then Brittany, I got her involved early on.
Well, I got involved in Double Cross when Lee asked me randomly, hey, I'm making a movie, you want to be part of it? And we have a history of doing cool, creative stuff like that together, so I was like, hell yeah!
And my wife wasn't a big fan of the whole implied nude scene that we shot.
We worked it out a really awesome way. I wore like a nude colored strapless bra with like a bra, like a real bra, and then a bunch of other clothes on top. And so I wasn't actually naked in the scene, but it just appeared that way. Darn it. And it was really artfully done how everything came off, and it was kind of like that mystery of it, but you saw some skin, but it wasn't really a big deal, and it gave that illusion that I was naked getting in the shower. And to use like the sound for what I'm distracted by, there was like a ridiculous cliche cat growling noise, and I said no, that's not gonna work.
The outside of her bathroom, Brittany, Patricia's bathroom, is actually Jake's parents' house, and so we melded those two things together. I just told Brittany to pretend that there was a window where the camera was, and then we just mixed those shots together, and boom. And it's really cool to see the difference between how the finished product looks and how the original footage looked. Because if you look at the first trailer I made, which was in October, and I hadn't really decided how the film was going to look. I didn't decide the 2.35 to 1 aspect ratio. I was still working with the 16:9, and I hadn't decided how I wanted the story scenes to look, because it was all just straight monochromatic. But later on I decided to take the scenes that were written on paper and give them a levels adjustment so that it was harsh black and white. And the cop car is a long story. I had been asking around on Facebook and asking around a lot of places. And at the time I was working at Sinorama, and this client I had, he knew a guy up in Adams County who had a Crown Vic. And so I went up there and looked at the car, and it was fantastic. And I told him I'd pay him $60, and that was another part of the expenditure of the film, was getting him to come down. And then I was also looking to use the Barry booth, the Sauk County Courthouse, but they were really busy, and it was around Christmas time. And so after I was done shooting the car scene with Jeff Rogers, who owns the cop car, he told me that he was really good friends with people in the Adams County Courthouse, and he said that they'd be willing to have us use their courtroom. And so it was like January, the first week of January, Brittany, Jake, and I carpooled up to Adams County Courthouse, and then we got the courtroom shots. I mean, we had an empty courthouse. Nobody was there, and the judge just happened to be in his office, and he offered to get in his dress and get full dress on and do a part for us. And I just had him do one line, and that's exactly what you see on screen.
The judge was so awesome. Like, my character's name was originally Victoria when Lee made the script, but he said Patricia when he was talking, like, because, I don't know, he just wanted to call me Patricia, so it kind of turned out that my name was Patricia because that judge was such a badass.
I didn't want to say anything to him because he didn't say the name right, because her name wasn't mentioned at any other time in the film. So we just ran with it. The original shot was very wide, lots of headroom, and then I ended up zooming in on it and making it very surreal. I dropped some frames, like I strobed the frames, and I did a motion on there to make it look more surreal, so that it looked like more like a nightmare, which is kind of what it is to him, to Terry's character. And I really like how that scene turned out. Sean Hobson, I knew him from high school. We went to the same high school, and we went to the same college. So I know that his chops for camera work are good. They're up to my par. I don't have to tell him how to use a camera. I don't have to teach him anything. I just give him the camera, and then he does the work, and it looks perfect. You can't ask for a better cameraman that can just do it without being asked. We had him come in on the second psychiatrist scene, and it was his idea to have that pullback shot of Jake sitting in the psychiatrist room, or the waiting room. So we found this thing on wheels in a shop next door, and then we put the tripod on there, and then he was holding the camera. Sean would be looking at the camera, and then I'd be pushing it like you would a dolly. And we had to do that a couple times to get it perfectly smooth. And then we also used him for the chase scene at Zach's bar there. I just had him. I didn't even want him to have a rig or anything for Steadicam or anything like that, because I wanted it to feel rugged and fit the music, the intensity. But on the last time I had him do camera work was when Jake was getting arrested, and he had this two-handed rig that you would screw the camera into the middle, so that the center of gravity was away from the camera, so it's more stable that way. And I just had him walk backwards about 4 or 5 times, and that was it. And I gave him director of photography credits because he brought a lot of cool ideas to the table. And he's like, "Oh, I don't know, man, I just did some camera work, man. I don't know. I don't think that's really appropriate." No, dude. I don't want to have my name on every single freaking title, so you're going to get director of photography. In the music, I had a song written long time ago, and I was just sifting through my own music that I make, and I couldn't really find anything was either too soft or too up-tempo, or nothing was really dark or moody, or it was either too heavy. I didn't want something too heavy metal. I didn't want it to feel metal. I wanted it. Initially, I wanted a dubstep soundtrack, which is why the second trailer has a very electronically driven song for the trailer. That was an experiment, and it was okay. So I ended up sending my material that I recorded. So you hear the guitar parts in the movie, the actual guitar parts, and that's my performance. And then all the synthesizers and the synthesized guitars, the synthesized bass, and the big drums, those are all this guy I saw on YouTube, Jeremy L. And he said that he does royalty-free dubstep music, and I asked him if he wanted to do a score for a film, and he thought it'd be really interesting. And then after several months of him not having any progress, I just sent him recordings of what I wrote, and then he turned all of my odd time signature stuff into what you hear on the film. And I think it is very fantastic what ended up happening, because it's really dark and moody, but it's not so up-tempo and not so slow. I think it's just right the way it came out. So I'm really happy with how the film turned out.